well, China sending a humanitarian aid package to both Iran and Lebanon, claiming that it's supposed to help the citizens of those countries, help in reconstruction efforts after the war. It follows President Trump signing a memorandum of understanding yesterday to effectively end the Iran conflict. The president thanked Xi Jinping for remaining, quote-unquote, neutral throughout the conflict. Watch this.
I want to thank China, President Xi. I was with him, and he stayed neutral, totally neutral, and I appreciate it. I had a long talk with him. You know, they have shoulder weapons to knock down airplanes. That it's not like the real deal, but they're accurate. They're fairly accurate. I said I would really appreciate you're not giving or selling any of that stuff to Iran. And you know what? For the most part, he didn't. They could have sent in to try and block or break the blockade. They could have sent in an oil ship with 6 destroyers alongside of it on each side. They didn't do that. President Xi helped me. He tried to help, and I think he probably helped get it solved.
Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, we know from intelligence reports that Beijing supplied Iran with weapons to fight the United States and Israel. I'm sure the president obviously is also aware. That's why he sent Xi Jinping a letter. He broke that news with me, that he sent him a letter to say stop supporting Iran. What is your reaction to the president's comments there, thanking Xi Jinping for staying neutral? We know that he wasn't neutral. Maybe he was neutral at the end.
Yeah, I think those comments were inappropriate. For one thing, the Chinese didn't try to run the blockade because it didn't have the capability to do it. But with regard to everything else, we know that China supplied everything to Iran during the course of the war except for combat personnel. For instance, there were weapons, as you pointed out, and also military targeting data. And that data was used to kill 6 Americans on March 1. So I don't think the president of the United States should have said those comments, considering how much China tried to help Iran during this war. It was not neutral. It was very much on Iran's side, and we suffered because of that.
Well, I agree that that Beijing was not neutral. We just don't really know President Trump's strategies and why he says what and when. And so that's something that we have to consider as well, because there's no doubt the president is aware of that as well. But what's your take on this deal overall? I mean, you've got 2 sides to this. On the one hand, you know, the supporters say this is good. This is about to open the Strait of Hormuz. This is going to be good for gas prices. We're already seeing oil prices plummet, and gas is below $4 a gallon, by the way, this morning in many cities. But on the other hand, the critics are saying this is giving Iran access to too much money too soon, and it's not finishing the job.
Well, it certainly isn't finishing the job, and we have given Iran a lot of the front-loaded benefits, including opening the Strait of Hormuz, which means there is less pressure on Iran to come to a deal. And look, you look at the memorandum of understanding, Iran promises almost nothing in that deal. So they promise to open the Strait, which is good for them, and so that's about it. You know, when you look at this deal in its entirety, the thing that I worry about is that it shows a failure of American will, and the Chinese are going to be emboldened in, for instance, East Asia. So we've got to be concerned. They're already pressuring Taiwan. More significantly, they're pressuring the Philippines at Scarborough Shoal. And these are very dangerous activities on the part of the Chinese. We don't need to give them any more confidence that the United States is not going to defend our friends and partners.
Yeah, it's a good point. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security revealed that the Coast Guard had to open fire on a non-compliant vessel off the coast of Florida, disabling it as it was trying to smuggle 25 Chinese nationals into America. Under the Biden administration, Border Patrol saw an increase of Chinese nationals crossing into the border illegally, nearly 79,000 in 2024. I mean, these numbers are just mind-boggling. The fact that China is pushing people coming into America illegally, why? Former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem joined me earlier in this week, and she confirmed Chinese nationals in America. Watch this.
We saw very coordinated attacks of people coming into this country from China that were facilitated not just through the southern border, but through the northern border as well. Countries that I have worked with in Latin and South America have told us how they had Chinese operations set up for people to fly into their countries, almost like a travel agency would be. They would show up, be handed certain documents, a backpack, get on a bus, and then bust right up over our southern border. And overwhelmingly, the testimonies have been that they were the same age individuals, young, mainly men, some females, but very much a coordinated attempt to get individuals into our country to change our country.
Yeah, and Gordon, they weren't just trying to change the country, they want to surveil the country, right? I mean, these people coming in from China are also, in some cases, would-be spies.
Yes, and what we have seen with the unprecedented surge of Chinese migrants across both borders, north and south, has been an increased attempts to intrude into our military and other sensitive facilities. So, for instance, in late 2024, you had a Chinese national try to sneak into a U.S. nuclear weapons facility repeatedly. And we have seen this across the country. There have been these drone incursions over our military bases. And we had that all sorts of activities going on, including those two ethnic Chinese. They were American citizens, but I think they were working on behalf of China's Ministry of State Security when they left a bomb at the visitor center at MacDill Air Force Base on March 10th. So, yes, there's an uptick in very suspicious Chinese activity at our facilities.
You know, we should talk about Jay Clayton for a moment, because the president has, of course, delayed his confirmation hearing. But while he was at the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gordon, what do you want to say about the way he handled Chinese corporate bad actors? All those companies that are trading on U.S. exchanges right now, attracting money from individuals. This issue of China undermining the United States and still being allowed to trade on our exchange and get investors to buy into those companies remains an issue today for Jay Clayton, does it not?
Yes, and the Chinese companies were not complying, or didn't have to comply with the rules, disclosure rules that every other company had to comply with, whether foreign or domestic. And so this is a matter of national policy. It comes from the top. It's not necessarily the SEC. But clearly the United States has the wrong policy. We should be requiring Chinese companies to meet the same disclosure requirements as everybody else. And because they come from a country which has designated us as an enemy, they shouldn't be trading on our exchanges in the first place. And by the way, we know that Chinese companies surreptitiously got into the SpaceX IPO, even though they were prohibited from doing so. So this is a national security emergency, and Roger Robinson has been on this from the very beginning, and we need to follow what he's been talking about.
Yeah, he sure has, and we're going to keep watching all of that. Gordon, good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Gordon Chang. Stay with us. We'll be right back.